Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beginnings, the show that asks, where do creative people come from? My name is Andy. I'm the host of the show and a writer and performer based in Los Angeles, California. What's going on, everyone? How do you ask that question? I'm in the studio here. It's about 11 o'clock at night, right before the episode goes up, trying to track some kind of flying bug. Mosquito, perhaps? Like, I don't have enough things to be anxious about, but there's like now 3,000 bugs in Los Angeles that carry different kinds of terrible diseases. So, I got COVID. If I go inside, I get fucking West Nile if I'm outside. Feeling good about life these days. How about you? Did you also read Douglas Rushkoff's new piece, The Intentional Collapse? I mean, it's fucked up, but I think it's worth reading. If you don't know Douglas Rushkoff, I bring him up every once in a while. He wrote this book. He's a futurist. I don't know if he'd call himself that, but I bring him up on the show sometimes because there's this book he wrote where because he's a futurist, he can kind of like anyone who's well-read and kind of can read the cultural, societal vibes, he has an idea of where things are going. Same way that Chris Hedges has an idea of how this collapse will happen. But Douglas Rushkoff gets invited by a bunch of billionaires to come and kind of like talk through what the collapsing future is going to be like. Because like one of the questions one of them had was something like, hey, how am I going to control my private militia if money collapses? And the question wasn't, hey, how do we use our money to prevent things from falling apart? It was, do I have to get shock collars? Things like that. It's insane. Anyway, I think Rushkoff's a very good writer. Maybe I should see if he'll be on the show. Anyway, speaking of people who are good at what they do, today's guest, Joelton Mayfield. If you don't know who Joelton is, I'm going to read you his bio right now. Originally from the Marble Falls, Granite Shoals area of Texas, musician Joelton Mayfield grew up in a family where music was intertwined with religion. As a teenager, he was even the music director of his church and led Wednesday night worship services. As he gradually moved away from the church, both geographically and spiritually, he began to write music for himself and released the I Hope You Make It EP in 2019. His debut album, Crowd Pleaser, comes out next week on Bloodshot Records, and folks, it's fantastic. Now, I don't know if I'm just cherry-picking examples or if there really is a new trend, but it seems like there's a resurgence of a lot of folks doing kind of alt-country type music. There's Ryan Davis and the Roadhouse Band. There's Carson McCone, former guest, wonderful talk. Joelton Mayfield, third example. Therefore, it's a pattern now. There's a pattern. It's not just that I've picked very specific examples in order to say there is a trend. But anyway, I heard Joelton's album a while ago, and I thought it was really great. And I've just been listening to it a ton. And Joelton's a real interesting dude. I'm always excited to talk to someone who has not just grown up religious, but actually felt it. Because it's such a foreign feeling to me. We talk about that a little bit in this episode. The feeling of faith is so foreign to me. Talk about that. Growing up in Texas, having older parents, a bunch of other stuff. I hope you like this episode. It was a pleasure to talk to Joelton. Coming up on the show, this is fun. I just talked to Gina Birch of the Raincoats. That was very cool. Thalia Zedek, also awesome. Mark Hollander from Aksak Mabul, founder of Cram Discs, puts out a lot of amazing music. So stay tuned for those. But for now, let's talk to Joelton.
What's up, man? Let's go.
Do you? Okay, I'll tell. This will. Do you want the polite answer, or do you want the real answer? Is that all?
Let's go real. Let's do it.
Not great. Not the best. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I have been sick for like 12 days. It won't go away.
Sorry.
And I'm negative for COVID, and it's not the flu, so I don't really know. Cold from hell, I guess.
Well, we have such a great public health system here in the United States right now that it's not like there's a million things that could go wrong.
Yeah.
Outside of those two.
Yeah, just a few 100,000 things. I guess.
So, I was reading your bio last night, and it said Central Texas. It didn't specify. It said Central Texas. So I took a stab at either being near Austin or Waco, and I wasn't. That's in my head, but I have no idea. Where'd you actually grow up?
I grew up about an hour outside of Austin, Marble Falls area, Granite Shoals area. Right on the Colorado River. It's a very beautiful part of Texas, right there in the hill country.
You said hour outside. I've been to Austin once for a comedy festival, and then I have not been ever again. And I really don't know much about Texas outside. Texas is one of those states where I only know it through media. So however it's portrayed, either in the news or in Friday Night Lights or in, Silver Jews songs or something like that. That's how I know Texas. What is Texas? What is where you grew up? What is that to you?
It's home. I definitely feel the most like myself when I'm there, or feel just a sort of unexplained sense of comfort, being home. But also, growing up, my whole childhood, it was, I was a pretty anxious kid and a pretty depressed kid, and I didn't really have the language or knowledge that that's what was going on. It felt bad most of my childhood, but now when I go back, it's like, it's awesome.
Well, what transformed? I want to get back into some of the stuff you had talked about, but what transformed that this feels bad into this is now comforting? Is it just distance?
Yeah, I mean, just figuring out who I am and becoming an adult person and just having some distance from it. Yeah, definitely. And I love both of my parents. I'm always happy to see them when I go back, and I'm always happy to eat at all the restaurants that I love and do all the things that I like to do in Central Texas. But it is like it's a homecoming now, more than like my life. So there's obviously like a degree of romanticism and nostalgia in that, I think. But yeah. It's
interesting. I'm from Reading, Pennsylvania, and when I go back there now to visit my parents, it's all changed. Where I grew up, I used to be able to walk through this field to the high school. It was always, it was a mile. It's not that long, but it's always I was always late for I would wake up late. I would stay up late, then wake up late. My dad would be furious. Sometimes I could get a ride to school because I would always miss the bus. So sometimes I'd get a ride to school with a friend who had a car. Sometimes my dad would have to drive me and be late for work, and he'd be furious. And then every once in a while, I would walk through this farmland. It's just pure, I don't know what they were growing. At one farmer one time had a shotgun. My friends and I were walking through, and he was just what are you doing? And we're just walking to Little Caesars to get crazy bread. All developed now. It's all you go there and you could just walk on a street to the high school if you want to, and it's not that far because it cuts through in a certain way that the farmland didn't. There's all the shops have changed. Even the road, the way that they have the roads, there's one lane now that I was used to driving when I was a teenager. and that's like now a left turning lane, and it's like what I'm trying to say is like it's so much has changed that it's actually disorienting more than it is and alienating.
There's definitely parts of my hometown that feel that way too. Like there are so many things I really would have loved to have experienced in high school. Like there's a cool coffee shop now. There's like a lot more fast food and like chain options, which I'm obviously, not really going to now. I'm going to the places I loved as a kid. But yeah, I mean there's like what used to be it's same thing. Like what used to be fields in rolling hills growing up now is like these kind of cookie cutter subdivisions surrounding like the whole area, and there's houses all the way up the hills, and it's it is disorienting, but I don't know. It's weird. Yeah.
Well, that's what I find interesting because so it is so it does have the same kind of like it's changed enough that it is a little alienating. But what is it even through the alienation? What is it where you're just like, oh, there's something good here that feels good? Is it just your parents? Like it could just be your parents, right? Seeing them.
Yeah, I mean, you can't like. I live in Nashville, Tennessee right now, and I have for the last 10 years. And there's a lot of really good food here, but the Tex-Mex is less readily available. There's a lot of really good beer here, but you can't find Lone Star anywhere. So it's just, going back and taking part in like those traditions and the things that I, had growing up or had in high school or had when I would visit during the summers in college, like that feels really good, and seeing my parents feels really good. Most of my parents' neighborhood hasn't really changed. They live in a really like mixed income neighborhood. Like the house that my parents lived in is a house that my grandfather and my dad's uncle built, and it's my whole childhood, we were like, I was constantly getting involved in like little construction projects in the house. Like they just kind of used whatever they had, so we were like replacing electrical wiring and replacing like floorboards and stuff all the time. And then like the plot across from my parents' house was just like an empty field. They live on a dirt road. It's still a dirt road. The houses at the end of the street are trailer houses. So there's not, like really much like change or gentrification in that area. So when I go home, it really does still feel like it did in my memory. Like my parents' neighborhood hasn't changed at all, even though like the town has a lot. But it's a really interesting little town because like you have like rows and rows of trailer houses, and then you have like a 3-story like mini mansion right on the lake. It's a really funny place. But
yeah, that reminds me of like certain places like Philly, especially like West Philly. I don't know if you ever spent any time there, but block by block the income level changes, and you just have these like giant like houses that I couldn't even imagine living in next to like I don't know what you would say, like rundown places perhaps.
Yeah.
And it's just all it's see, that's what I'm saying, like stuff like that to me is disorienting when there's not a kind of like theme, let's just say, that winds its way through a geographic area. I find myself on I find myself not knowing how to even be, I guess is the word.
Yeah. I've only spent about 3 nights in Philly, periods of like 18 hours each, like on tour. But I've played and been to a lot of great bars and venues in that time. I shouldn't say a lot, I guess just 3. But there's always like a street fair going on. Like every time I go, like load-in is really difficult because of it. But everyone's like so happy, and there's like kids everywhere, and they're just all like drinking beer out of these giant mugs in the streets. Yeah. I think every time I go there, I say something about the Phillies into the mic, and everybody goes wild. So,
You
big
do that
baseball guy. But
everywhere you go. You're just like, what's the sports team here? You're like,
I follow
Mets.
baseball pretty closely, so I can usually like if I can't think of anything in my stage banter, I can usually just be like, my favorite player on this team is this. Do you guys like that guy? You know, sort of thing. Helpful little talking tip, I guess, when you have to say things into a microphone on a stage. If you can't think of anything.
I know comedians who will go to wherever they're performing. They'll talk to someone before about like what are the things in that town, and then they'll just write like 5 minutes of jokes. And even if they're like, they're just off the top of their head, it's not like it's time tested material.
Yeah.
But the audience goes the minute you mention something local, the audience they're like, oh, they know blank. They know the Philly fanatic.
I love doing that stuff. I played in Chapel Hill, North Carolina recently, and I mentioned a restaurant that I loved and thought was amazing. And I got like no woos for it. So that was confusing. But every other time.
They're jaded at Chapel Hill.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe I mumbled. I don't know. But maybe they couldn't hear me. Maybe they weren't listening. I don't know.
You said your grandfather built and uncle, you said built
my dad's uncle.
Dad's uncle.
Great uncle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Built the house. What brought them? I 100% sorry. I'm not in the greatest headspace in the moment. I 100% forgot the name of the town you grew up in. But what brought them there? Did they grow up there?
My dad's father and mother, my grandparents on my paternal grandparents were traveling evangelists. So my whole childhood, they moved my dad and his 4 siblings around a lot, but they kind of eventually settled in the Granite Shoals, Marble Falls area. But they were traveling evangelists for 30 years, so they settled at the church there. It's a Methodist church now, but I think it used to be a Pentecostal church. And my paternal grandmother, she could play like every instrument. She could play like she did the kind of the Jerry Lee Lewis piano thing, and she could play pedal steel and guitar and organ, and so she would lead the music service, and then my grandpa would preach. But yeah, my paternal grandmother, she passed away when I was 2, so I never really got to know her. But I have her vibraphone, which is like over 100 years old. The vibraphone is like basically just a giant xylophone, and the vibra is vibrato because it has these turning little kind of $50 size circular metal things in the pipes that turn and cause this vibrato thing in the pipes. It's a very beautiful instrument, but that's like all over the record. And yeah, so I kind of owe my musical heritage to my dad's side of the family, but they settled there because of church stuff.
You're, I think, a lot younger than me. And so in my head, like when you said traveling evangelist, I immediately was like, oh, like 1930s, 40s revival kind of, if I even have that time period right. And then I'm like, wait, that doesn't make sense. They would probably be traveling evangelists in like the 50s or so.
Yeah, 50s. My dad was born in 55, so like I guess just like 50s and 60s, kind of. They were kind of like tent revival type thing, but would be like guest speakers at a church or whatever, or like but then would stay places like a couple of years sometimes. So
yeah, how does that happen? Like I understand, like in say like the Catholic Church, there's a hierarchy that like sends people certain places, but how do they know where to go, or is there a circuit?
I don't really know. I mean, I would assume they get like job offers, or they just call around, or someone calls them. I guess just word spread. This was all like primarily in Texas also. So a bunch of tiny towns in Texas. uh, my dad was born in Corpus, Corpus Christi, which is where they were located then. So that's not a tiny town, but yeah, I don't really know, but I would guess it's like kind of being like a touring musician, except or a comedian, but it's talking about God.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but they were like Pentecostal, so it's like hellfire and brimstone, intense, like charismatic, speaking in tongues and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Which is the church I grew up in too. So, not with my grandparents, but yeah.
When you say fire and brimstone, is that just do you mean that in just like a theatrical style of preaching, or do you mean that like literally that's the vibe of the sermons, or that's it's all about damnation as opposed to salvation? Or
I never got to see my grandfather preach, but I wouldn't say it was like. I would say what stuck with me the most during my childhood, being in that part, in that specific denomination of Christianity, was like fear. And I don't know if it was supposed to be more about damnation than salvation, but that's just what stuck with me the most. And, I was probably allowed to watch the Left Behind series at too young of an age. But yeah, I was a really anxious and freaked out kid, really didn't want to go to hell. And that was kind of like probably my primary fear for most of my childhood. So yeah, I don't really know what the point is, but that was the point for me. So that's what it felt like.
Yeah. So wait, I don't know if you can answer this at all, but I'll ask it anyway, and we'll see. Did the anxiety and depression predate? Is that more of like something that is just the way your brain is formed? Did it predate stewing in the fear? Or do you think the fear created the anxiety and depression? Or was it there dormant and the fear brought it out? See, that's why I said, I don't know if you can answer this. You were a kid, but like, I am curious,
Yeah.
like, what do you think?
I mean, I've only been in therapy for the last 5 years of my life, but which has helped a lot. But I experienced, these teachings from this sort of fear-based perspective before I ever experienced really any talks about what to do with my emotions, and mental health was not a big priority in the church or in my school or in my upbringing. My parents are about 20 years older than every other kid's parents my age, and they love me a lot, and they tried really hard to have me, and lots of pregnancy complications, and I'm really grateful, and they did so much better than their parents, my grandparents, but they're from a different generation,
Mm-hmm.
and it's I would say that yes, that did shape my anxiety. I think growing up on Jesus makes you a really intense person, and it affects like all of your platonic and romantic relationships even after you've left the faith. I think it's I don't know. It's tough. There's much to be learned and dug into there, I think, still in my life. So.
Yeah. Well, can you give me a little, the thing that I've tried to figure out over the last, 20 years or so has been, I'm Jewish, but I've read the New Testament. I've read the teachings of Jesus. Seems pretty much clear cut. Love thy neighbor, turn the other cheek, etc. Right?
Yeah.
How is it that there is a branch of Christianity that is just like fear?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how you get that from the book club. I mean, if I had to wager, I mean, fear is maybe the greatest motivating factor behind most actions, I would say. So it sells well. You know,
Yeah, yeah, that is
it's popular.
Yeah,
That's how so many things work. You know, that's
outside
how
of
racism
Mormonism,
works.
you have
That's how misogyny works. That's how yeah. Anyway,
yeah,
outside of Mormonism, what?
you have evangelical Christianity, which is the other very specific strain of American religion, and
Yeah.
they're both, you know, Mormonism is a little more about, it seems at least, kind of capitalism,
Yeah.
and the other strain of American life, fear, it seems, got a home in evangelical Christianity and Pentecostalism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Neat. Yeah. Neat.
But I
Yeah.
think that sums it. I love it. It's the pithiest way to sum it up. It sells well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be my guess.
But like, if you grow up stewed in a kind of fear, especially a fear of hell, right?
Mhm.
How do you ever break out of that? Because that seems, fear to me, I was always afraid of fucking up my future. So I just kind of like adhered to what I thought I was supposed to do for a while, even though I didn't want to do that.
Mhm.
And it took a while for me to break out. It seems like a fear of hell is even more powerful than just a kind of like existential fear.
Yeah. I mean, it gives you something. I was going to say real, and then I was going to say concrete. But I don't feel that hell is either of those things at this current moment. It gives you something to blame, you know, other than just, I think, a general existential anxiety or existential search for something. It's a place to hold it. So yeah, how do you break out of that? I think at a certain point you have to decide that you take what you need from Christianity, from the framework. You know, you follow the teachings of Jesus. You know, if you're still down with the cause, or you decide it's not a helpful framework for you at all, or you just decide that hell is not a real place and a loving God wouldn't send people there, or you know, you draw your own conclusions, or you live in fear the rest of your life.
Right. But what was the breaking point for you? Or was just a slow, gradual kind of emergence?
Slow and gradual. I mean, like I was still really trying until probably like middle of college. You know, like I had shifted to more like, you know, reading Tim Keller's The Reason for God. You know,
Yeah.
that kind of brand of you know, intellectualizing it instead of it being this whole just kind of purely spiritual, or like mostly spiritual thing as it is in a charismatic environment. And that, you know, I stuck around for a while. There were points where I was like still like leading worship or playing guitar in the worship band when I was like kind of really not down with any of it anymore. But yeah, it's not a helpful framework for me at this time, and it hasn't been for a long time, and it's not. There are experiences that I had that I can't explain, you know, and there are times when it was the realest thing for me, and it's not anymore.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it yeah, I'm not. I'm scared of other stuff now.
Did that fear permeate the rest of your relationships? Like, I'm just trying to figure out, I guess, in my head, I'm trying to put myself in your place. And I'm like, I get the anxiety, depression. That makes sense to me. But like, are you afraid of other things? Like, are you going through your life kind of like when you're a kid, when you're a teenager, into your like early 20s, kind of keeping back from things because there's that fear there? Or are you participating fully? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think it leaked into everything. You know, growing up in church, you hear stories of God said he or she or they were the one for me. Like it's supposed to be, your relationship with God is supposed to be the foundation of every uh, romantic relationship you pursue. Your
Hmm.
relationship with God is supposed to be like the foundation of every platonic relationship that you have, because you're, calling each other up or calling each other out or holding each other accountable in your walk with the Lord. That's the language. And so when you have that, it is like a constant anxiety and a constant like double check. But also when you decide that that's not your focus anymore, there's a void.
Yep. Yeah.
So you have to fill that with other ideologies, or, um, you know, figure out your morals or where you stand on your own. I personally don't need to be scared that I'm going to be sent to hell to have empathy for other human beings. Um, some people maybe do, but
Hmm.
it's yeah, it it's in everything. It's like the motivating factor. And it's that constant anxiety.
Yeah. I lived my life in a way where like for a long time it was like I couldn't like leave something, whether it's a relationship or a whatever I was doing, if I didn't know what was next.
Yeah,
So there always had to be like I always had to have like the I couldn't just make a leap of faith. I couldn't just make in the, existential sense. I couldn't leave that what you're the way you're describing is like you left without there being some kind of meaningful or spiritual thing to, like you said, there was a void. Like I was always scared of that void in
yeah,
a way that like I ran from being able to just cut whatever that was, whether it was like an existential thing, a romantic thing, just like stop it and just be like, it's okay, Andy, you'll figure it out.
hmm
It's taken me a long time to be okay with like, okay, there might be a space, there might be a hole, an oblivion hole inside you that you'll just have to
yeah,
find new meaning to fill in.
yeah. I have pretty intense OCD that can can be uh pretty debilitating when I'm down bad. When I'm when I'm really depressed or anxious. And I do constantly like need reassurance that what I am doing or what I am saying or the person that I am is, enough or viewed as a positive thing. And I think that definitely comes from like the like post Christian anxiety on some level, because the anxiety's been there for as long as I can remember, but also I lost it. Um, oh, I was gonna say also, like, when I left, it wasn't like a I'm done with this sort of thing. Like, I was agnostic for a long time, and I wouldn't describe myself as like an atheist now. I don't, you know, I I don't want to. I can paint with color, Like, I don't feel. And describing yourself as an atheist is like it's to me it feels like then it's still part of your framework, and it's just not something I spend my time
Yeah. Yeah.
letting it inform my decisions. So yeah, so I didn't leave not knowing what was I was like, oh, maybe for a long time, you know, but yeah, it was gradual. So, but yeah, there's the void.
I ask a lot of my guests who come from either like a Pentecostal background, evangelical background. I'm always curious about this experience just because I don't think I've ever felt I don't think I've deeply felt a connection to anything divine in my
Mhm.
life. And so just I've had like contact highs, I guess. I don't know. I've never smoked pot, so I don't. But like I guess the version of that, I've been in the vicinity of things that are so holy that I can feel it for that moment in that, whether I was like I remember being in is it the tomb of St. Francis? Something like that in Italy. I once took a trip there, and I could feel, because just like the vibe, I could soak it up and like feel that. But like outside of there, it's like if a tuning fork is like in close enough to your ear, like I got that, but then the tuning fork, was away. So it's always like interesting to me, because I guess I'm like trying to figure it out because I can't experience it myself or haven't.
Yeah. I mean, I never like spoke in tongues. I definitely like tried to when I was a kid, and I don't totally know how much I buy it either. But I have been what they call slain in the spirit, where you like get so overwhelmed by the vibe that you pass out. That's happened to me, and I have also like multiple times in my upbringing got like insane goosebumps basically, and that's like just felt very, very moved for a long period of time, in a sort of unexplained way, and that's kind of the extent, and that's just kind of based on the experience of as much as I don't really agree with a lot of things that were taught by people in my Christian school or people in the Christian church that I grew up in. Like, there is nevertheless something extremely powerful in community, and that is something that is positive that has stuck with me when the where two or more are gathered thing, when people come together for a common goal and meditate on that, or do organizational things on that, mutual aid or direct action or whatever. Like it is it's a really awesome feeling, and so that may be one way that I can explain that to myself, but I'm not really ever willing to write anything off that I felt was real at the time, even though it's like not part of
of course
where I am now. So I don't know. It's a freaky thing.
Another pithy way of summing it up. Did your parents want something for you, like a direction in your life?
They're extremely supportive. I mean, like, there were always instruments around. That was kind of always. I played baseball for like 8 years, and it was never. When I went to college, it was kind of on the rocks. Like, I was like, oh, maybe I want to be just a producer, or maybe I just want to play guitar in people's bands, or maybe I just want to be a singer or whatever. Like, I hadn't really, I don't think until like middle of college I really nailed down like, I think I know how to write a song now, or in most days I'm still not sure I know how to do that. It's a long process of putting everything together in a way that you feel that you can stand behind when you return to it over and over again. It's a very long process to write a song, but yeah, I feel very supported by my parents, and we have disagreements on like disagreements on, that's not a word, disagreements.
I like that word though.
We have disagreements on directions I should take, or shows I should play or whatever. But at this point, they're much less involved in things like that. So it's
if that's what the disagreement is, though, I find that to be
Yeah.
a fine disagreement with a parent, as
yeah,
opposed to
yeah,
what is this you're doing,
Yeah.
which was for a long time what my parents were like. What are
Yeah.
you? What is this doing?
I don't think that I could. Any pushback kind of stopped happening a couple of years ago on, and it all comes from a place of wanting success for me,
Yeah.
But any pushback from my parents kind of stopped a couple of years ago. I got the opportunity to open one show for Robert Earl Keen, and that's a Texas legend. And it's like my mom knows who that is. Like it's not these cool indie bands that I like that I get to open for. Like my parents don't know who the Mountain Goats are, but they know who Robert Earl Keen is, and so that was a real, I think, turning point in the like, oh, okay, we're not really worried about him anymore. I guess. Yeah.
I don't know about in Texas, but was it weird having old parents like that? That comes up. Like your parents are basically the same age as my parents, and I think I'm a generation above you or so.
I'm 27, so
Yeah, I'm 46. So
okay, yeah. I mean, my dad is turning 70 in a couple days, so yeah, they're older. My mom was 39 when she had me, and I don't know, my dad grayed young. His hair turned gray young. But yeah, I mean I have a couple of friends who have like the kind of halfway or whole generation kind of skip between them and their parents, and it's relieving to talk with them about it, because it's like I feel like I should be closer to home now. That just to like help them like move boxes and things. Like it's weird. It's not. I don't know. It makes you feel really really mortal,
mm-hmm.
and really feel the gravity of like the impermanence of this life. But
Oof.
yeah, it was
Buddy.
never that weird in childhood, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, you said that. And I was just thinking of like, I remember when I first saw a picture of my dad with like, he had grown a beard and it was white. And I was just like, what the fuck? Like, it was speaking of disorder. This is the thing. My parents are just a generation above me, I guess. Well, they had me when they were 29. So whatever that is. But like, they're boomers. I guess I'm like technically end of Gen X, top of millennial, but whatever that means. But like, I always felt this, a lot of these questions that I'm asking is like, I always felt alienated, even in community where like I felt part of the community, going to temple or like going to like some like Jewish youth group thing. I felt alienated from them, and I never figured out why I felt alienated. I just felt like I felt alienated in the suburbs of Pennsylvania. I'm like, this doesn't feel right. There's something that just doesn't like the vibe isn't resonating with me.
Yeah.
That's why I'm asking these questions. Because I'm like, because it is interesting. It feels like a little more pervasive the way you grew up, a little more stifling. Like I just couldn't articulate it because I didn't have the vocabulary or the emotional awareness to articulate it. And that's, why I'm fascinated a little bit by how you were able to break out from it.
I didn't have the vocabulary or the emotional awareness, I don't think, until I moved to a different state, and went to college in a different state, and then sort of realized I wasn't like a total person, like I wasn't a full person, and I didn't know what I wanted totally, and I didn't know who I was, and so which I'm, you know, as I get older, I feel like I dress more like I did when I was a kid, and as I get older, I feel like I like more of the things I did when I was a kid. Like
Uh-huh.
I didn't give a shit about baseball for like almost 10 years there. And now I like can't get enough of it. And it's weird. It's very circular, this growing up thing. But yeah, I mean, I don't think until I had like space from the ideology and the hometown and the very protective parents, until I had space from that, like I don't really feel like I could see it at all,
Mm.
It was just sort of, this feels bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Were they so protective just because they had you later in life, or was it
I'm
just because of the like the '90s? I think that was the rise of the helicopter parent. Even though they are my parents'
Absolutely.
age.
Yeah, I mean, like sign of the times, and also like I'm an only child, and it took a lot of work for them to have me. Um, there were miscarriages and um, some just really really bad times, and yeah, I was an IBF baby.
Mm.
So yeah, which I mean, under it's like crazy, uh, but like under like current Texas abortion laws, like my mother would have died before I was born, like, which is nuts.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So she wouldn't be here and I wouldn't either. But yeah, I mean, I think that my parents were so protective because they, really really cared, and I was their only kid, and I am their only kid, and I'm lucky that they were kind of supportive of anything that I got passionate about. I think that's kind of rare, but yeah, and I mean also like that they don't want me to go to hell.
Sure.
We don't have conversations this candid about faith. That's still a stress. Um, but it's chill. It's fine.
Sure. No, I I once had a tried to have a normal conversation. I don't think they're Zionists, but they are. I think they're just like they believe whatever like they were taught in a certain way. I don't know about
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
Certainly, I don't think now they are. But like 20 years ago, when I was just like, well, someone lived in that land before Israel was created.
yeah,
So, what do you think happened? Do you think that was fair? And then it was just like a scream. It turned into a screaming fight, and that was the last time I broached certain things with them. So it's all
yeah,
because I'm just like, this is not conducive to any kind of real conversation.
yeah. I have a very similar approach with my dad. He's a I would describe him as a Zionist, and he's a Trump supporter still, and so that's there are just things we don't talk about because I spent about 8 months of 2020 living with them again, and I tried so hard to change his mind about so many things, and he every day, uh, and there's I think a certain uh, degree of reasoning and emotional intelligence and empathy that you have to have. That's just like you can't reason with a person who's unreasonable, and that's just the case with him on a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
So yeah, we have a pretty closed off relationship in that regard, or
yeah.
it's pretty open for him. I just nod and don't. You can go nonverbal for like 5 minutes when anything comes up.
Yeah, you just have to. It's so. I mean, this is the puzzle for us, and everyone younger than us. Is just how do you possibly open up empathy? open up people to empathy? How do you open up the empathy in people? I don't know. It's such a mystery.
Yeah. And how do you have empathy for people who don't have any empathy? Do you?
It's tough. It's tough because there's certainly people who are like outright evil, and I don't know if I can have empathy for them. I don't know if I can have empathy for someone like Stephen Miller, who like just seems to be like the reincarnation of Joseph Goebbels. Like that, I'm not sure how to have empathy for someone like that. For someone whose politics are incoherent or they don't actually know it, or like when they say one thing, but when they're actually confronted with something evil, they respond with something positive or something good. Right? Someone who says something, but then like they actually seems like a decent person when the rubber hits the road. I don't know how do you talk to, I don't know how to awaken the actual, to change the way, the belief system.
Yeah. With people, I mean, I'm my dad, to the best of my knowledge, my dad is the only person I have contact with that is a, Trump supporter. But like, when people, I don't know. And I tried, I tried really hard to, bring up very valid points whenever the talking points on the Fox News would get repeated to me. But yeah, I don't know. I guess you try until you run out of steam, and then you give up on them, but not on the things that you believe, and you try to find what works as some sort of stand-in for hope until you have hope. Or you don't have hope, but you try to take care of those in your community. I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, but I think that, one of the struggles in my life has been finding community, finding the people. I think I have been able to build that in the last, since I wonder if it's this. Since I figured out who I was and what I wanted out of life, then it was easier to find community and find people who believed in those same kinds of things and who wanted, even if they didn't want the same kinds of things I wanted, or even if their politics were incoherent or whatever, that they were still at their core decent people. And that's the kind of thing that connected us, even if, I don't know. I find solidarity to be very interesting because it's something that like binds people, even if we don't have anything in common. Like I'm in the WGA, the Writers Guild, and I'll go to a meeting where we're part of a union, right? And we have this kind of solidarity built on that. But like outside of like, we're all writers, but maybe we don't like the same kinds of things, or we don't write the same way, or we don't have anything in common outside of that job stuff. It's a weird feeling that's different that's like part of community, but different from community. And I'm starting to get used to that as even a thing that can bind people. I don't know. Does that make sense? Am I just babbling now?
No. I mean, I guess it goes back to like that. I mean, that's what church felt like to me, You might not agree with some of or most of what everyone in the room thinks about stuff, but there's still, where there's a will, there's a way. I mean, there's still a power in gathering together. I don't know.
Yeah. Do you think? I mean, this is so dumb and linear, but like obviously, I would assume that there's something in that feeling that becoming a musician, where you're like, well, I want this feeling. I want to feel this feeling, and I want other people to feel this feeling. This is a way to do that. I don't even know if it was conscious. And again, it just seems like so like one-to-one, but is there something in that maybe for you? Or was there when you?
I think like when I was leading the music for church services, I wanted to, just kind of be I want to use the word vessel, but that's so like Christian coded. Just kind of be like because your job is to just have everybody sing along with you, and there's power in singing a song together, and leading that is that's definitely where I first got like bit with the bug of wanting to play music on a stage, but I think it's a totally different feeling when it's a song that you have written. It's maybe just as profound of a feeling when it works, because my favorite music, my favorite records, the things that I return to the most, like I find them helpful and they healed certain parts of me at certain times. There's nothing better than listening to New Morning when you're in love, and there's nothing better than listening to Blood on the Tracks when you're going through a breakup. The art that is helpful, I think, is maybe the greatest hope of anyone making it. But at least for me, that's any hope I could have for anything that I've ever written or made. If it helps somebody, if somebody finds it to be healing, then I feel like that's a win. And all I really want to do is to be able to pay my rent writing songs, and that to be my only job, and touring and touring on those songs that I've written. So yeah, it came from church. The bug came from church. I grew up when I was 3 years old. That's like my first like musical memory, or memory of being like taught how to play. I was like on stage at church for like a children's program. My dad played bass in the church band my whole childhood. I was like standing next to him waiting to go up for whatever, like award service or whatever it was. I was in a program called Royal Rangers, which is like conservative Boy Scouts, like more conservative Boy Scouts, I guess, for like Pentecostal kids. So I was in Royal Rangers, and I believe it was like a Royal Rangers program. Anyway, I was on stage, I was standing next to my dad, and the music director, Marilyn Hickson, who she played piano, and she would take me and my dad fishing all the time. After, once I got older. But she turned around and handed me a pair of cloves, which are the wooden cylindrical sticks that you beat together, kind of sound like a metronome. She handed me a pair of cloves and like kind of mimed how to beat them in time to what the band was playing. And that was like my first memory of being taught how to play anything or being taught how to keep beat. And that was at church, and I was 3. And I remember that. So that's definitely where the love for music was born for me.
Seems like a lovely place to end. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. These were very. These are the questions I've been getting asked recently. It's very refreshing.
I love the album. It's great. It's so good.
Thank you so much. Thanks for
over and over.
Thanks for having me on, and thanks for listening.
Yeah, of course. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye, oh, 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 bye.